Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. So we are meeting after a long time. The previous class was held in December. So after that, I had been to India for a month-long visit. So this is our alternate Saturday class on Bhagavad Gita. The topic, that is, we were discussing the 11th chapter, and we just concluded the 49th verse, where we'll just recapitulate what we discussed in that shloka. Sri Krishna is assuring Arjuna, after showing him his terrible form, he was sure that Arjuna had the fright of his life because he never expected the form of the Lord, though he was requesting Sri Krishna to show him the Vishwarupa, but he was not prepared to see. And it created a lot of fear in his heart, and so he requests Krishna to take back his terrible form and show him his benign form. So he says, don't be afraid. In the verse 49, he said, don't be afraid or confused on seeing this terrible form of mine. Don't be bewildered. It is just one face of my form or one side of the reality. But there's another side which is free, which will make you free from fear, and it will delight you to see that form. So with great delight, you see this, my former form, my original form again. Not original, but the pleasant form again. So it is something like if you are in a deep sea, then you can't avoid a stormy sea. The people on the ship expect the water to be very calm, and the ship is going very smoothly and everything is fine. But suddenly, from nowhere, waves seem to come, a storm comes. And then there is this whole ship, even if it is a big ship, uh, the waves are so big that it will create such a commotion and put lot of fear in the mind of the passengers, the people who are traveling in the ship. And they are just praying to the Lord so that the sea may become calm and the waters, the rough waters or the stormy sea, just calms down. So the situation is just like that here. After what appeared to Arjuna as a terrible form or a terrible storm in a sea, the waters have become pacified now, they become calm. And as a result, Sri Krishna is assuring that now you will see this form which is free from fear and which will bring delight to your heart. So it is something similar to a child. Sometimes the mother has to be very angry for something that the child has done. No doubt she does not expect the mother to be so harsh, so cruel when she punishes the child. But as soon as that anger subsides, then the mother is kind and then pacifies the child after giving the necessary punishment. The mother's anger, the anger that she had shown, the terror that it had created or the fear that it had created subsides, and the child is happy to see the mother's benign form again. So, similarly, the Jivatma, when it is traveling through the stormy sea of samsara, which now and then has a tendency to become stormy. So that is the whole challenge. That is why the samsara is compared to a sagara. Sagara means sea, not a pond or a lake. which is placid. Lakes normally don't have these kind of waves, and a boat which passes. I mean, even if the lake is big, there are hardly any waves. It's only in the sea. The seafaring ships only are uh, exposed to the risk of a storm and a very bad weather and a lot of waves which create a lot of terror and fright. So also a jiva or a jivatma, when it is undergoing a journey, it's passing through the samsara sagara, that is the ocean of samsara. That is a way how this world is described. It's full of waves, tumultuous waves, and you can't avoid as long as you have a sturdy boat or a sturdy ship with a good captain to take that ship, no matter how many storms come in our life. We need somebody to steady our ship. So, God is always present, but just as a captain of a ship, cannot guarantee that there will be no storms, all he can assure you is, I'll take you through that storm, and when the storm subsides, there will be peace. So God resumes his benediction, his benevolent form, or shows the benevolent form to Krishna or to Arjuna. Sri Krishna says, now you behold this form. And that serene form is what is described in verse number 50 and 51. In 49, he says, I understand that you are terrified by seeing the terrible form of mine, which again is part of reality. You can't avoid it. Just as you can't avoid storms when you are traveling in the sea, you have to be prepared for that. But then the Lord, as a captain, guides the ship if we surrender to Him, and saves us from drowning. In the 12th chapter, we'll see Tesham Aham Samudharta Mrityu Sansara Sagarat. That is a verse which will appear in the next chapter, that is Bhakti Yoga. After this, he shows how the Lord alone has the capacity to save a drowning man from drowning in the sea of samsara. Tesham, that person, aham means me, the Lord says, assures. Samudharta, I lift, literally lift, because maybe the ship has sunk and the passenger or the people who are traveling, they don't know what to do. But if the Lord's grace is there, he can manage to rescue a person, a drowning person who is drowning in the ocean of samsara. So now first Sanjaya explains what has happened, because Sanjaya is able to see the terrible form, and he is explaining to Dhritarashtra. As we know, throughout the description of the Bhagavad Gita, it is Sanjaya who is able to see whatever Arjuna sees. He had the blessed privilege, or you may say Sri Krishna also gave him the Divya Chakshu as he gave Arjuna, whereas all the other people who were assembled there, none of them could see either the terrible form nor the serene form of the Lord, which is now showing. So Sanjay is now telling Dhritarashtra, who of course is blind, but because he is what is going on there, even though he is not able to see. Even if he were to be on the battlefield, Dhritarashtra would not have seen these terrible scenes or the terrible war. But he's keen, he still has a little hope, blind hope, that his son, with in spite of all his evil deeds, will somehow survive. So that putra moha, or love for that blind love born out of ignorance for his son, is still making him hope, not give up hope. He still hopes that something good will, something will facilitate his son's victory, even though he is on the side of adharma. But anyway, he is lucky that at least even if he can't see it, he can at least hear what Sanjaya is seeing. And Sanjaya, of course, is very lucky. So he says in the 50th verse, Ityarjunam, Arjuna, to Arjuna, Iti Arjunam Vasudeva Tathoktva. That is Tatha Uktva. Having said this to Arjuna, Vasudeva, who is the son of Vasu, is known as Vasudeva. That is the name of Krishna. Krishna has so many names, so also Arjuna has so many names. So here he is using his original name Arjuna. Somewhere he calls him Partha, but here he says Iti Arjunam to Arjuna. Sanjaya says the Lord spoke. Vasudevaha Tatha Uktva, having spoken in this manner. In this manner means in the previous verse he says, "Oh Arjuna, I am now showing you uh, to spare you the terrible fear, and I'm again showing you my gentle form, my serene form." So, having spoken, he showed his own form. So, Ityarjunam Vasudevas Tatha Uktva Swakam Rupam Darshayamasa Bhuya. So he showed his original form again. Bhuyaha means he showed him again. And Ashwasayamasa. Ashwasayamasa means having consoled him or assured him. Just to console him because he is terrified now. So he consoles him. He said, don't be full of fear. Get rid of your fear. I'm showing you the Bhitam who was terrified. To that Arjuna who was Bhitam. Arjunam Bhitam. Enam Bhutva Punas Saumya Apuhu. Saumya Vapuhu. Means he again showed his gentle form. Saumya Vapuhu. Gentle form. Saumya means gentle. Vapuhu means form. Mahatma, the great souled one. So, having spoken to Arjuna in this manner, that is, in the manner which was described in verse 49, Vasudeva showed again his own gentle form, the great souled one. The great soul, that is one of the adjectives. Mahatma, Sri Krishna is addressed as Mahatma. And the great souled one assumed his gentle form. He consoled him, that is, he consoled Arjuna who was terrified. So Vasudeva is the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. So while he was born, though he was born in captivity, he showed his benign and wonderful form as Sri Krishna to his parents. Though they were imprisoned, they were consoled by seeing the wonderful divine form of Sri Krishna, which of course miraculously had to be transported to Gokula, where his foster parents, Yashoda and Nanda Ghosh, they were he was to take care. It was divinely ordained that though he was born, he showed his wonderful form, but it was before he left the prison, and miraculously Vasudeva took him. Vasudeva is Vasudeva's father. Vasudeva means the son of Vasudeva. So Vasudeva and Devaki, they saw this gentle form, and they were the ones who first saw the gentle form. That is what he says. And then he just shows his terrible form to strike terror. Or even to good people, sometimes he has to show his terrible form. That is the idea. Showing him the good form again, the gentle form again, then why did he have to show the terrible form at all? He could have directly shown him the gentle form and explained in a very gentle way. No, but it is just the Lord shows us the terrible form of Maya, so that we don't get caught. So this reclamation or this resurrection or this change which came in the minds of Arjuna, because unless he sees the terrible form, he will not appreciate the gentle form. So you may say the terrible form was shown to Arjuna only to the extent that he came back on the right path. He was about to take a decision where he said, "I'm not going to fight." So he had to show him this terrible form and make him strong. So also all these challenges, all these storms that come, it only helps to make the captain of the ship, or the ship itself, the people in the ship, strong. So if there are no storms, then they say the training is not good. Unless a captain has undergone many journeys where has had to face all these storms, he doesn't become a good captain. So he is a Mahatma, that is, the Lord is the Mahatma. He just shows enough terror or the terrible aspect only to the extent that is necessary to improve a person or to put the person on the right path. Because if everything goes on smoothly, then perhaps one would get lost in Maya. So now and then, the stormy sea reminds us that life is not smooth. Life will not be smooth. This journey is fraught with danger, and you need somebody to help you in this journey. So that is the intention of the Lord. And because of this, he is known as Mahatma. So the last verse, the last line says, Bhitamenam bhutva punah saumya vapum Mahatma. Saumya, he showed his gentle form, this Mahatma, that Mahatma in the sense that great soul, it's addressed to Sri Krishna. He is the great souled one because he was the one who showed the terrible form, removed all fear, and once the fear was gone, he restored his original form, so that gentle form, so that he can get assurance that one who depends on the Lord, no matter how many storms come in his life, is definitely saved. So then Sanjaya continued, his gentle form he consoled. Then Arjuna says, now, what Arjuna says, Sanjaya mentioned this to Dhritarashtra, but now Arjuna is uttering something on the battlefield. He is also confirming what he saw and uh, what kind of grace he received from Sri Krishna. He says, Društva idam manusham rupam, means after seeing this gentle human form of yours. Till now, I was exposed till verse 49, he was showing his horrible form, terrible form, which is another aspect of reality. But now, having seen your gentle form once again, Društva idam manusham rupam, your human form, tava saumyam janardana, and that also saumya. Of course, the Raudra Rupa can also be there in the human. As you see in some of the incarnations, the Lord had to come as Narasimha to kill Hiranyakashipu. But he is the same Vishnu who comes as Sri Krishna or who comes as Sri Rama, comes in his gentle form. But they can assume the terrible form anytime. So he says, now I am very happy having seen your Društva idam manusham rupam tava saumyam janardana, your saumya manusham rupam, I am very happy. Idanim asmi samvruttah. Idanim asmi means now. Uh, Idanim means now. Idanim asmi. Now I am composed. Samavrittah. It has come from the word sama and vritti. Vritti means thought. So my agitated mind or agitated thoughts has now calmed down. Earlier, it was the vrittis were scattered or the vrittis were disturbed because of seeing the terrible form, but now it has become samavritti, samavritta. Samavritta means the composed mind. That is samavritta sacheta. Sacheta with sacheta means with the mind. Saumyam Janardana asmi samvruttah sacheta with mind, with a conscious mind. Prakritim, nature, gataha, restored. I am now composed and my agitated mind has been restored to its original nature. So that shows, as Swami Vivekananda says, it is not that we achieve something after spiritual practice. All the yogas, all the Raj Yoga, and all the techniques in meditation is just to restore our minds to its original state. That is why we never say that we develop our mind evolves. No doubt it can be said. What actually happens is as a result of spiritual practices, it it helps us to restore us to the divine state. Swami Vivekananda once said that when a child is born, uh, it is the world who robs him of his innocence. He very famously said once, the child is born and the nature, the world, the Prakriti, especially the uh, Maya, which is the terrible form of Maya, that Prakriti, slowly takes away that innocence, that primal innocence, that primal, you may say, divinity, and covers it with some kind of tamas and other qualities. So that innocence goes away, and Swamiji says all the sadhana that we do is to restore that innocence, to go back to that innocent state. So, according to Vedanta, we are not born sinners. It's not that we were born as sinners, we were born as evil people, and the Lord comes and makes us divine. No, He restores us. That is why, thanks to you, very clearly says, having seen this gentle form of yours, though was subject to a lot of agitation and my mind was disturbed, I am now composed. I have become samavruttaha. Samavruttaha. I have become samavrutta means samavritti. From vritti, the vrutta has come. I am with a mind which is sachetaha. Chetana is consciousness. Sacheta means I have become totally composed and calm now. So, a peaceful state is going back to our original divine nature. Prakritim gataha. Prakriti in this sense, it doesn't mean the disturbed Prakriti, but my real nature. When the Prakriti was one with Purusha, that's the science of all our sadhana, all our mantras. The mantra itself, according to Tantras, is a condensed statement, a condensation of this statement here, that from calmness we go to turbulence, and it is Prakriti which shows us the terrible side, and then again the bija or the bija mantra, the anuswara, puts a stop to that creation, puts a stop to that terrible form, and you are restored back to your original nature, which is Om or the Ishta. So on either side of the bija, there is the Om and the Ishta Devata, which symbolizes that from a journey from the supreme peace, supreme calmness, undisturbed calmness, your mind got agitated, which is represented by the entire prakriya, the entire action of Prakriti. And Prakriti takes you through these experiences and again restores. And I'm restored to my own nature. So this sachetaha, sachetaha prakritim gataha. So with full consciousness of your gentle side or your glorious side, has enabled me, your glorious aspect of your personality has removed all the agitations which were created uh, by Prakriti itself, by the lower Prakriti in our mind, and it has restored me to my own nature. So also, there is a proverb in English where you say it's like a fish in troubled waters. When the water is very calm, the fish is swimming with lot of joy. There's nothing to disturb it. But when the waters are agitated, even the fish, that's why we say a fish in troubled waters. So it regains its normal composure. Even the fish gets agitated when the waters are agitated or disturbed. When water becomes calm, it is restored to its own divine nature. So also the Jivatma, when it is in the troubled seas of samsara, cannot remain composed. But especially when it is put in touch, when it is in touch with the terrible aspect. So the Lord had to show the terrible aspect to show that this is also a part of nature. And you don't panic, because just as the troubled aspect of Maya or troubled aspect of Prakriti disturbs your mind, there is another aspect of Prakriti which again restores that. So Arjuna definitely is a witness. In a matter of few minutes, when he sees the Vishwarupa, and again, though he was warned by Krishna that you don't pester me for this. We remember there is an incident in Hriday's life when he was already disturbed. So Sri Ramakrishna knew that it will take a lot of time, and by serving him, he will get all the peace and calm that a person gets through sadhana. But still, by seeing others, he wanted a vision. Said everybody says they have this vision, and I am not getting any vision. So he was asking his uncle to somehow, he says, you bless everybody, and all of them go into ecstasy like Bhavanath, and there were so many wonderful disciples who used to come, and then when Thakur sang, obviously in Hriday could not feel anything. He could not feel the ecstasy, could not feel the joy. He thought that I am deprived, although I have served my uncle so much. He is not giving me those visions. So he went on, he felt jealous, and then he said, why don't you give me the vision? You can definitely, you are giving it to others, why don't you give it to me? And Sri Ramakrishna said, you just go on doing what you are doing. That is your sadhana. You just do seva. Ultimately, you will get it. Don't pester me for this. Similarly, Arjuna also, though he knew, he was curious and he wanted to see the Vishwarupa. And when the Lord showed the terrible form, he said, please withdraw it. So also similarly, the same thing happened, and Hriday, Sri Ramakrishna just touched his heart, chest, and he had of course that vision was not terrible, but it was too much, the light and the wonderful vision that he had, that he himself has been converted into a light, and Sri Ramakrishna is also a big light. And it was so nice. A person who really would have aspired for such a vision, such an illumination, such an experience, they would have just merged into that. But Hriday was not prepared. And he just started shouting. His mind got agitated. He could not tolerate. And when he saw the vision, he told Sri Ramakrishna, and he started shouting like a mad person. He said, I have this wonderful vision. What are we doing here? He was for some time transported to a world where he forgot his body, forgot the presence of other people in the room, in the surrounding uh, people. And just like a madman, he started shouting, Uncle, let us go. We are divine beings, and all those things started jumping about. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, Are, why are you creating such a big commotion? I see these visions and I never get agitated or talk like this. He either goes into samadhi, or when he comes down, he is his normal self. So he had to forcibly touch Hriday again, and uh, by his grace, he could just make him his normal self. So the terrible aspect of Ishvara is not so easy. The real nature of Ishvara, Arjuna finds it difficult because he is not prepared. So when Sri Krishna restores himself and shows him his normal form, he is happy. So what is the message of this cosmic form? What is the purpose? Now even that is explained in the end of this chapter by Sri Krishna, 52, 53, 54, and 55. I don't know whether we'll be able to discuss all these verses. But Sri Bhagavana Uvacha, that is 52, he is now trying to explain the significance of what Arjuna saw. Of course, Sanjaya saw it, but even he was not able to understand what was going on. On one side, he sees Sri Krishna showing his terrible form. He explains everything, and by his grace, he could also see that. But since he was neutral, I don't think Sanjaya was agitated, or he might have been agitated, obviously. If Arjuna was agitated, obviously Sanjaya was also agitated. But then when he saw, and when Sri Krishna realized that it is too much, the stormy waves of the ocean, beyond a certain limit, even the ship cannot tolerate and the ship will sink. So somehow the storm subsides and the ship starts sailing in its normal course. That is what happens to us in samsara, that now and then the seas become stormy, our life undergoes a lot of commotion, lot of waves of uncertainty, anxiety, worry. These are necessary so that we yearn for peace. If everything is going on smoothly, perhaps we are lulled into the feeling that everything is fine. It may be fine. They say sometimes when everything is calm, it's a sign that a storm is about to hit. It's very often people who observe nature, they find that the wind stops suddenly just before a heavy rain. The wind and everything stops, and then the cloud suddenly bursts, and there is rain and storm and all those things. So there is a calm before the storm. So our life is also like that. And Sri Krishna showed a glimpse of that, the real nature. But what was the purpose of his showing the terrible form and then showing the benign form? That he himself is explaining. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Sudarsham, Sudurdasham. Durdasha means it's so difficult to see. Sudurdasham, which is very hard to see. I don't give this Vishwarupa Darshana to all. Sudurdasham, idam rupam, drashtvansi, I have showed you, thou hast seen. You have seen, by my grace, you have seen this, which is very hard for any sadhaka to see. But I have shown you this other form, the Vishwarupa. Not just the terrible, but the benign form also. Because in the beginning, if you remember the first few verses, he sees the glory of the Lord. He doesn't see the terrible form always. Only a few verses, many verses are there which show the terrible form. But at the same time, he first shows his magnificent form, the wonderful powers that he is capable of. Ishvara is capable of. So he says, you have seen my form, Društva nasi yan mama, yat mama. That is my Društvan asi yat mama. Devaha. Devaha api asya rupasya. Devaha api means gods, even gods. Even gods, they have, though they have a desire to behold, nityam darshanam kankshinaha. Kankshana means they are always having a strong desire to see this Vishwarupa of mine. But I don't show, it's not such a easy thing to be bestowed the grace with which, or the divine eyes, the divine chakshu, with which one can behold this form of mine, this total Vishwarupa of mine. So Devahapi, even gods, those who have evolved themselves as gods from human beings, even they are very keen, nityam, that they are always keen to see this form of mine. Darshana kankshana, that is desirous to behold. Very hard it is indeed to see this form of mine which you have now seen. Even the devas are very eager to see this form. So, in the scale of evolution, if you see our Puranas, the devas are superior, considered to be superior to human beings because of the wonderful noble work they do. Devas are not somebody, they are noble human beings or noble beings who, as a result of lot of good karma, enjoy the fruits of that karma. That's all. They are superior to human beings because human beings have both. They have the good side and the bad side. But devas, once they finish enjoying the fruits, which is of course limited, then they have to be born again as human beings. That is one wonderful theory in Hinduism that one has to have Manusya Janma. That is why Shankaracharya says it is so rare to get a human form. With all its defects, the devas cannot get liberation unless they are born as human beings. So it's only as human beings they see the terrible form of Prakriti and also see the divine form, which then saves them. But that is not even possible for devas to see. The Vishwarupa, which Arjuna saw as a human being, is rare even for devas to see. So, though in the scale of evolution, due to some punya, the devas are considered to be superior to human beings. Their knowledge of Ishvara does not necessarily uh, uh, be better than that of human aspirants or human sadhakas. They, in fact, human beings can have, by the grace of the Lord, a better idea of what Ishvara is than Devas. Devas are noble beings who are still enjoying the fruits of their past karma. That's why we see a lot of people apparently very happy. Towards the end of their life, they have earned a lot of money. Towards the end of their life, they become miserable because it is something similar. The Devas have to come back and have their share of misfortune and then realize that without the intervention of Ishvara, they cannot get mukti. So, the spiritual enlightenment, which is a result of the Vishwarupa Darshana that Arjuna has, is far more superior to the visions and the experiences of even the Devas, who are in their own way trying very hard to understand the glory of the Supreme. But they are, uh, you may say, their progress is retarded uh, because they are infatuated with all the good things that have come to them. So, also in this world, when people uh, get carried away by the glories of the Lord or the glories that they are bestowed upon by the Lord, the glories or the wonderful fruits of their karma, they think, oh, they have achieved a lot. But unfortunately, that is not so. The Lord here, one of the purpose is to tell sadhakas that unless you see the terrible form which Arjuna was able to see by the grace of the Lord, which is very rare even for devas, because they don't see the other side of truth. They don't realize the importance of moksha or mukti. That is what he is driving at. The mystery of the Supreme, if the Supreme decides to have grace on you, and just like Vishwarupa, he will make the aspirant, the spiritual aspirant, undergo all these different experiences, terrible experiences also. So that also comes in the form of some kind of grace. So it is by the divine grace that these terrible experiences also is part of the Vishwarupa. That is what uh, Sri Krishna is hinting. And he says, then what are the paths that the sadhaka has to pursue for the attainment of the truth or Ishvara? Then he explains in verse number 53, he says, Naham Vedair na tapasa na danena na cha ijjaya. Ijjaya means by ritualistic worship. I am not na aham Vedaihi. By reading of Vedas, by doing tapasyas, austerities, nor by giving any kind of gift, danena, nor ijjaya, by sacrifice, by doing pujas, all the different homas, havans that we do for getting some kind of merit, as Nachiketa's father was trying to do to go to Swarga. or to become a deva, to become to enjoy all the pleasures which are not fulfilled here in heaven. They're all they all misguide a person. So the Lord is warning in Aham Veda, even by just reading the Vedas, you won't get. Na tapasa, na danena, na cha ijjaya. Ijjaya means sacrifice. Shakya evam vidho drashtum. It's not possible for even those people who study the Vedas, just because somebody has studied the Vedas, did all the austerities, did all the rituals, and give a lot of gifts to other people. It is not possible evam vidha like this, drishtum, to be seen or to be experienced. Drishtvan asi, thou hast seen, asi, you have seen, drishtvan asi, mam yatha. Mam yatha means just as you have seen me, is explaining the consequences or the benefits that Arjuna will get as a result of these experiences, or this Vishwarupa Darshana, experience of Vishwarupa Darshana. And Sri Krishna is clearly telling him that even the rishis, even the people who study the Vedas, do tapasya, who give lot of gifts, and also think that by doing certain rituals they will become spiritual. They will not see me in reality as I did, as I showed you. They can't see this form. So the Lord has repeatedly mentioned to Arjuna, he will mention it in other places also, that the meritorious acts, this dana, tapasa, they are all just to purify the mind, so that the mind becomes calm. They, apart from purification of the mind, they are not necessarily conducive to the vision of the Lord. It depends only on His grace. So they say they are not as useful, they are no more useful for the attainment of the reality, Ishvara, the Lord, than a diligent search for a gold coin. Suppose somebody, after hard labor, he is aspiring to get a treasure of gold. He gets it, and he spends his whole life trying to get that piece of gold. But then after getting that, he doesn't know what to do with that. Because though he aspired and he spent his whole energy or sadhana to, sadhana means the effort that one needs to earn wealth, to earn merit, to do punya, all these things require a lot of effort, and people do those efforts with the hope that the Lord will shower His grace on them. But is that a correct path? He's not saying that those things will not have any benefit. They will definitely have benefit, because they will lead to purification of the mind, after which one can become spiritual. But in the 54th verse, which is very important, which he says, how he tells, first he tells, that is one way of explaining. If somebody asks you what is the path, then logic says, I mean, there are some teachers who first tell you what is not spirituality. If somebody asks what is spirituality, if you tell them what is spirituality, they will not appreciate. First, you have to remove all the other possibilities, saying that this is not spirituality, like following the path of neti neti. So, if somebody wants to experience Brahman in the path of knowledge, they say no iti, not this, not this, not this. So, it's an indirect way of telling what it is. If you say iti, that is another path, the path of bhakti, where they say, oh, Lord alone is true. But if you don't have bhakti, if you don't have devotion to a Ishvara, then the other path is the path of jnana, which was explained in the second chapter, where you try to wish or white, well, you try to follow the negative path, na iti. So if the world shows you some gifts, you say, no, not this. This is not what I want. This is something temporary. Then the world shows you another gift. another toy. Then the child says, no, not even this toy. When it rejects all the toys, then the mother understands now and when he cries, he says, no, none of these toys are happy, can make me happy. I am all done with it. Then only the Brahman reveals himself, the Brahman which is within. So that is one path, no iti, no iti. But there's another path of iti, which is a direct and sure path. That is explained by the Lord. So that is a consequence of this Vishwarup Darshana. In 54, he says, Bhaktya tu ananyaya shakya aham vido arjuna gyatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. Now this is very important. How can I be known and seen and experienced in reality? What will not lead you to that goal? He explains in the previous verse. He says, just by reading the Vedas, just by listening to the Vedas, just by doing puja or worship, and just by doing tapasya, even tapasya, austerity, by these things you can't know who I am in reality. But there is a easier and direct way, bhaktya, by devotion, to indeed. Ananyaya means with single mind. It's any type of devotion will not do. With a scattered mind, if you are devoted, it won't help. But if your devotion is single-minded, then shakyaha, then it is possible. Aham of this eva vidha, to see this form of mind, it is possible by ananya bhakti. Ananyaya bhaktya means by through that bhakti which is one-pointed, which is single-minded. O Arjuna, Jnatum Drushtum, not only to know but also to experience. Drushtum means to experience. So, Jnatum Drushtum Cha Tatvena, in reality. So, here Swami Shardananji also in the beginning he quotes another verse which is something similar to this. This will come in many places, verses similar to this. That it's not enough if you have bhakti, you should have bhakti to an ishta or to a form of mind whom you know tattvataha. That is, whom you know in reality what that form is. It's not just a bhakti blind faith, but it's a faith based on understanding and true knowledge. So that's why he adds this. By unswerving devotion, ananyaya bhakti, that is one part of it. But that is not enough. I can be known and seen what I am in reality. Tatvena. Tatvena means I can know you in a partial way and I can comprehend you as you are. Tatvena means the tattva, that is in reality. Tattva means tattva. Tat means that which is real. So tattva is in reality. Praveshtum, not only can you understand me, I can be known, I can be known in reality. Drushtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. Parantapa is the name of Arjuna, one who creates the scorcher of force. Parantapa. Param means one who creates terror or maybe a lot of, you can say, burns the enemies. Literally, it means one who burns the enemies. So that is one adjective of Arjuna, who had the capacity to fight and defeat all the people, all his enemies. So he's addressing him as Parantapa. But Praveshtum, to be entered into. To be entered means to be entered into that reality, to become one with that reality. First, you know the reality, try to know the reality by meditating on him, by doing japa, by studying about his life. Janma karmacha me divyam. If you know the divine play and the divine message, Janma karma, that is my divine work. Janma karmacha me divyam, one who veti tattva, tattvataha, one who knows. It's a similar verse which occurs elsewhere, which Sri Krishna says, if you know me in reality, So without knowing, without trying to know all the different aspects, it's not possible to get this experience. First, you have to be single-minded to one particular Ishta. Then try to know Janma and Karma. You try to know about his birth, his deeds, his divine Leela. When you know that, in reality, in Tattvataha, or here it is, Tattvena, you will understand me in reality. So, by unswerving devotion, can I, of this form, the form that I showed you, be known and seen in reality and also entered into. Because when you realize the tattva that the Lord is made of, then you suddenly realize Aham Brahmasmi, that is, I am one. I am one with that Brahman. So, the ultimate goal, even for a person who tries to meditate on a God with form, is to become one with Him. So, he says, Gyatum Drushtum. You not only know me, you see me experience, and finally you become part of that experience. That is Praveshtum Cha. So, you enter into me, means you become one with me. So here Ananya Bhakti or Ananyaya, that is Ananya Bhakti, is devotion without fluctuating. That's the reason why one has to have a Ishta. We cannot just go on worshipping different aspects of God. That diverts the mind. So you hold on to one form, focus on Him, meditate. In that state, when the Ananya Bhakti comes, the sadhaka recognizes nothing but Ishvara. And he hands over his mind, his energy, his prana, everything is focused on the Lord. His entire being is preoccupied or absorbed in the Lord. And all that he contacts through his senses, his intellect, his buddhi, everything is directed in an unswerving manner without any fluctuation towards the Lord. And he whatever he does, when he has that kind of focus, that everything becomes divine. It's Lord's activity. So the example that is given that Ananya Bhakti, or not example, the idea here Sri Krishna conveys is this: Ananya Bhakti takes the devotee through all these stages. What are the stages? First, he was curious to know about him, Gyatum, and then Drushtum, then he sees, Tattvataha. That is, first he hears and wants to know. So he is curious and then he goes on pestering, and the Lord shows him the Vishwarupa. All this is possible because he had Ananya Bhakti, though he did not know that. He was just a friend. Krishna was just a friend. But even as a friend, that Sakha Bhava was so deep that he could think of no other person who could help him, who could guide him. In fact, he chose Sri Krishna, and the whole army, Yadava army, was on the other side. He preferred to choose Krishna because he had that Ananya Bhakti. He knew that if somebody can help me, in reality, it is the Lord Himself. So this takes the devotee, not that he realizes Him tattvataha, though he may know Him, though he may experience the Lord, but at the same time, this Ananya Bhakti takes him forward till he understands. He first feels the presence of the divine. Then he gets the vision of the Lord, that is Vishwarupa. So these are the different stages that Arjuna passes through. All the previous chapters were designed or just were preparing him through different yogas to get this Vishwarupa Darshana by the grace of the Lord. Then he gets the vision of the Lord next. Gyatum, that is to see, to know. Drushtum, then you see, and then he moves intimately with him till the unity, praveshtum, that is entering or becoming one with that reality. So all this is possible by unswerving devotion to one Ishta, one particular uh, form that we associate with the infinite Brahman. So infinite Brahman is a concept that which is not very clear. But here the Lord assures us in this verse that you will not only know me, you will also see me in reality as I am. And finally, you will be part of me. That is, praveshtum, you will enter into me. So Sri Ramakrishna is to give a wonderful example. I'll conclude with the gospel, the famous quotation or the famous saying or parable of Sri Ramakrishna. He used to explain this particular fact in his own simple language. He says, many have heard of milk. Those who have seen it are lesser in number. Many might have heard of milk, but not all people. Some people may be too poor. I mean, I'm talking when a lot of people where milk was a luxury or is still a luxury in some places, they might not even have seen it. So the people who have seen milk are less in number, and the people who can afford to drink that milk are still less. Even such, Sri Ramakrishna says, is the contact of man with God. Everybody speaks of God, he knows him in one way. He has seen God. That is, one is Gyatum, Drushtum, but only a few can really drink and be one. The milk becomes one with their personality. So, Sri Ramakrishna further says, a talk arose. There was a discussion whether man can see God with these physical eyes. When we say darshan of the Lord, what do we mean? What do we see? Sri Ramakrishna categorically says, no, he cannot be perceived with this flesh, the eyes, fleshy eyes. When bhakti is practiced, ananya bhakti, that is devotion to the Lord in one particular form, when bhakti is practiced, the sadhaka develops a superior sense organ. That means a subtle sense organ which is already there, but it is sort of uh, created in a special way, or maybe it becomes so fine that it can see the sukshma. So, in a superior sense, he develops a fresh eye, divya chakshu. They call it divya chakshu, is nothing but subtle vision, which has the power to see and hear supernatural or spiritual things, spiritual aspects. The things which are subtle can be seen. With that spiritual eye, God is beheld, is seen, perceived, and the devotee is commingling with him. He commingles with him. He becomes one with him, praveshtum. So, how does he become one with him? He first sees him, understands him more deeply, and as that Ananya Bhakti. So, throughout the process, the one common factor is Ananya Bhakti. So, this short thing, short verse explains the whole sadhana. At the end of Vishwarup Darshan, he says, "Oh, if you do this, if you do that, you do this, you will not attain him, but you will attain him if you remember this verse." Then what should the sadhaka do? So I'll just recite this verse and explain the meaning. We are running short of time, but it is one of the most important verses of this chapter. This verse itself can represent the whole chapter. Then what else? First he says, how you can see him. That is, he explains unswerving devotion. But how to do it? How to get that? Bhaktya, Ananya Bhakti, how to get it? That is very important. Ananya Bhakti you can get. How will you get it? So he says, Mat karma krit, mat paramo, mat bhakta sangavarjitaha, nirvaira sarva bhuteshu, yasa mameti pandava. So how to do it? He who does mat karma krit, he who considers every work that he does as dedicated for me. He doesn't think it is his work. He does all the work, mat karma krut. That is how Ananya Bhakti comes. The mat karma krut means he who does work for me. Mat paramaha, one who considers me to be the paramaha, as the supreme Lord. So everywhere he sees only me. If he does work for me, not for anyone else. If he considers somebody great, it is only the Lord whom he considers great. Mat means the Lord uh, to whom you have this Ananya Bhakti. So, ye Mat Bhakta, one who is devoted to me. Sangha Varjita, one who is freed from attachment. Now, this is another condition. See, he must be devoted to me. Mad Bhakta, he should be devoted to me. He should consider me as the Supreme Lord. Should meditate on the Lord or the form that you have chosen, Ishta, to be the Supreme. None else is supreme than him. And do all actions for me. But at the same time, you have to detach. Attachment to the Lord and simultaneous detachment to the world. Sangha Varjita is free from attachment. Sangha here means, actually it means company. So in sangha means you just be in company of somebody. Sangha varjita means one who is freed from all kinds of attachment. Physically may be involved doing all the work, but he is detached. So that detachment, abhyasa and vairagya both are required. Nirvaira, one who does not have any sort of enmity. Because if Lord alone exists and he is not attached to anyone, then why should he be enemies with anyone? Nirvaira. So, as a logical consequence of Sanghavarjita is Nirvairaha. Sarva Bhuteshu cha yah mam eti Pandava. Who is without any hatred for any being, he comes to me, who is free from attachment, who is devoted to me, who looks upon me as supreme, who works for me, and he comes to me. Mam eti, he goes to me. Goes to me means he comes to me. And Pandava, O Pandava means the son of Pandu. So that is how this chapter, the 55th verse ends. But we will discuss there's this verse. We will, since there is not much time now, we will conclude now. But next time we will start with chapter 12. But we'll have discuss this verse since it is a very important work. And logically, if you see, after this verse comes Bhakti Yoga. So Ananya Bhakti is explained by the Lord, is preparing the ground for the 12th chapter. And then he says how one can attain. So you may say the next chapter uh, is just an extension of what he says. So he keeps the suspense alive, and in the next chapter, he will he concludes this by saying, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. This is there after every chapter. Vishwa Rupa Darshana Yogo Nama Ekadashodhyaya. So this is the end of the 11th chapter. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Any questions? Yeah, a few minutes now. No questions?
Yeah, I'm thinking Krishna showed the terrible form, isn't it? And then the good form.
Yeah.
So when he shows the terrible form, that means even terror is God in a way, isn't it? All the
Yes,
evil we
yes,
see
yes,
is nothing
yes.
but the God, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That form, that is one aspect. He says, na, it is the terrible form also is part of Vishwa Rupa Darshana. So as he said, the storm in the sea or a calm sea, both are the sea alone. Sea alone takes different forms during different time. But if you believe in his redeeming power, which will come in the 12th chapter, then the terrible aspect will not be as destructive as it is. We may or may not perish, but even if we perish, the benign form is always there. So it's not that the terrible form also is part of God, but nobody obviously likes to uh, accept that terrible form, or nobody would willingly accept that terrible form unless it comes on its own. But it comes because the terrible form is a result of our good or bad karma. The terrible form is a result of our bad karma. If we are lucky enough, we see the good side. So that is an incentive in a way uh, to. That is why in some future chapter, Sri Krishna will say, even if a evil person decides, it's there in the 12th chapter, even if he decides to worship me, he has taken a right decision, because it is never too late to worship the Lord, because that is the only way. So, having known the terrible form, the difficulties, they are just for education, as he said. Either stormy sea or the training that the Lord gives. The mother scolds the child just to put him on the right path. And then when the child goes on the right path, that doesn't mean the scolding is bad. Still, the mother desires that the child improves himself, doesn't get carried away by the world. So, a little bit of shaking and agitation was necessary in his case, in everyone's case. And then the Lord comes and then shows the path what is to be done. Yeah. So, we'll conclude. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.